Good morning, guys. Thank you for your patience. It's gratitude and forgiveness for all of the learning and trading and sharing we're about to do. And if you're the praying kind, I'd ask you to pray for that Navy medic out in California. He got bitten by the day trading bug, married a couple kids, was not making a lot of money as a Navy medic, a corpsman, but he took out uh, two mortgages on his home and a $25,000 line of credit on his credit card at high rates, plus what he's going to pay for margin, and came up with $75,000 worth of capital. This year turned that into $1 million, following some of the Robin Hood day trading mania. And then in the last 6 weeks has turned that $1 million account back into 7,000 and didn't pay off any of the loans. And his wife just kind of innocently says, he's having trouble sleeping and he's not eating well. And I just think, God dang it. How different is that from the California gold rush? The law of large numbers says that if you put 1 million people all chasing the prize, some of them are just going to get it and do astronomically well. And then confirmation bias and survivorship bias brings them to the top. There's just not enough systematic analysis and marketing of the other people on the other end of the curve. Man, my heart goes out to that guy. And so you do what you can do. That just feels hurtful. A lot of bandits on the road. There's in Chinese literature, there's 4 classics. You've heard me talk extensively about one of them, Journey to the West, the Monkey King, in support of his journey to retrieve the sacred Buddhist texts for the Tang priest. He goes on his little quest, and that 10,000-mile journey establishes the foundations for a lot of the Chinese culture with respect to individuality and traditional myths and legends that has survived through every dynastic cycle, the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, and modern collectivist thinking. It survived Confucianism, which is sort of the opposite of freedom to express your ego in an individual way every day, So that's an important piece of literature to understand, especially in a world with so many Chinese. There's something humanistic about it. And another one of the classics is The Brothers of the Wood. So that describes the equivalent of the Chinese Robin Hood folk tales. Predates the Robin Hood narrative by centuries. but it's essentially the same idea, and it has to do with the dynastic cycle and the mandate of heaven and the relationship in a Confucian society between the people, the administrators, the government, the emperor, and and free spirits who act on behalf of the people. So in the traditional dynastic cycle, the emperor and all his administrators were said to have the mandate of heaven if things were going well for the people. You know, the emperor was the connection on the golden throne between the people and in heaven. And his job at the top was to take care of the people. And when he did so, he was said to have the mandate of heaven. And he had the mandate of heaven until he was overthrown. And then, by definition, he must have lost the mandate of heaven, and whoever wins now has the new mandate to take, and it's always to take care of the people. Well, that whole line of thinking was supported by the Confucian ethic, in which administrators of the empire were taught to read and write using ideograms that required them to interpret the symbology through the lens of the Confucian classics. So it's an implied literature in which you have to reason out what that guy's trying to say through the use of his artful pictograms and word pictures. So it's different than the phonetic alphabet in that sense. Well, the education of these guys who are competing for this scholarly positions in the administration caused them to, spend all of their formative years learning the language and interpreting the Confucian classics. And when they graduated and based on their test scores were installed into various administrative positions outside of their home county in order to administer the law, what you have was a administration by scholars and people with a certain work ethic, but who had been steeped in the Confucian conservative social traditions and the 5 relationships, which defined the appropriate response in all public and private social, political, economic transactions. The relationship between any 2 people would be defined by one of the 5 relationships. Well, all of that works when the policy decisions that are being made at each level really are taken for the purpose of the thriving of the people and the mandate of heaven being supported. When that kind of inevitably or eventually breaks down, and you see it not only in the Chinese dynastic cycle, but in the magnificent production of Gibbon's the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire on the Great Courses. I mean, that alone is worth $8 a month for Amazon Prime, just to listen to the Great Courses. Just that course alone is worth getting the Amazon Prime channel. It's unbelievable how good that is. Well, when the human nature combines for negative consequences at each echelon, and it goes in the direction of harm to the people for the enrichment of the intermediate level managing class, well, then you're starting to lose the mandate of heaven. It doesn't officially happen until you get overthrown or voted out or whatever. Well, in the Chinese tradition, then, men of goodwill in the villages and the towns and the principalities, when they felt that they could no longer, follow the policy pronouncements of this elaborate bureaucracy, they became bandits, or they went outside the village boundaries to live a life of freedom in the wild. That was called living in the woods. And when they would gather together to make their living as bandits, They were collectively called Brothers of the Wood. And now each band of brothers would take on its own identity like any tribe would, and some of them were just plain bandits and enjoyed that. And others would be trying to have a shadow government, if you will, to kind of regulate that territory in a way that they believe should be taken care of properly for the people, to stand up against the Sheriff of Nottingham as Robin Hood, if you will. So the story of Sun Wukong, the Journey to the West, is one of those four classics. The Brotherhood of the Wood, Brothers of the Wood, is another one, and it talks about a whole series of stories when these various bands get together, and it tells those adventures. And that became a rich part of the Peking opera tradition that kept alive the traditional response to a Confucian system that was out of tolerance, or it was drifting off the rails. You started seeing this kind of behavior. Now, it didn't mean that they were not to be judged, like just because you were a brother of the wood and you decided to go rogue, that you automatically were aligned with heaven. It really came down to what your intentions were and the way you behaved. But if you take a look at what's happening in this nation right now, you can see a lot of the same sort of allegorical, metaphorical conditions occurring when the rule of law is no longer being supported by the rule of good men. So that's one of the ancient tensions, the traditional tensions in the Chinese experience as well, the human experience, where the question is asked by Mencius, a Confucian scholar of renown, would you rather be governed by good laws or good men? And so the Confucian tradition is good law. And so he made an effort to try to codify all that stuff. And so the Analects to Confucius are an effort to establish a public rule of order that is geared towards aligning the people to the emperor, to heaven, so that the people may thrive. And so in the Chinese social system, the peasants, the rice growers, are at the top of the social chain. And when the emperor and his administrators are aligned with the heaven and in support of the people, then they have the mandate of heaven, then everything goes well. And then you have the ideal state in which you have not only rule by good law, but also rule by good men and women who are interpreting the law in the spirit of supporting the people that they may thrive. To the extent that we're human and we are less than perfect, then the natural breakdown in that order can occur, but it's solved locally at the lowest possible level. And some of the social grease and lubrication that is offered by the Chinese tradition of Confucianism is allows us to maintain a civil society, and that is the explanation for 3,000 years of uninterrupted written history from China. The challenge of doing that should not be underestimated. So the Brotherhood of the Wood offers some important thoughts about individual responsibility and choices that you make and outreach. And so when we look at these troublesome times, I start thinking about that Navy medic and the rules and regulations that should be in place to protect him, and the lack of protection available to him from marauding marketers and just the unregulated forces of the market. I'm not saying that day trading should be eliminated, but it just sets a mark on the wall there that says, how are we taking care of people? So it's my hope that through the use of kata and principles and freely giving away as much of my stuff as my wife will let me, that we're doing good things in the world, and that that guy will be taken care of. We'll figure out how he gets taken care of. But that's sort of our challenge, and so the continuing theme you'll hear from me, and you heard it this week, about collaborative learning, institutional coaching, instructional coaching designed to improve the technique and pedagogical skills of teachers and students in a classroom environment, so that both the teacher and the student are not only fulfilling their roles in the classroom with each other as part of the educational contract, but are becoming better at what they're doing. So if you can help the student look through the eyes of the teacher, they'll be better students. And if the teacher can look through the eyes of the student and study their craft, they'll be better teachers. And there's a virtuous cycle that happens in there. So the role of the instructional coach is to find ways to rapidly raise the skill levels of both the student and the teacher, and himself as the coach. So now the coach, teacher, and student need to be supported by programmatic departments that establish the infrastructure to get things done. And so that's the next windmill that I'm tilting at in the military college, and you see it being expressed in the way we're approaching the learning ecosystem and how we're doing it. And as Eugene has pointed out, he's discovered that my central teaching belief is that you learn best by trying to teach it to others, by teaching it to others, not just trying. When you make the effort, you are teaching. And we learn through iterative feedback and continuous learning with humility, gratitude, and forgiveness that we're going to get better. And that if we trust that process but confirm it through evidence, then we are best positioned to maintain maximum educational growth, maximum sustainable education, and we're just going to get better. And I see that happening when we talk about, I'll talk a little bit later here about, an update from 3 traders. And I see the people who are leading with the kata, using the kata to pull themselves through the material, are already making bank, even if they haven't formally gone through all of the hybrid trading workshop. They're making bank and learning as they go, but taking action and learning from that and the applied. So they're learning to work wood by starting with whittling sticks and knives and not cutting their fingers off, and learning to work directly with the material and trust the sensations that they get from their hands and their eyes and their ears and their heart with respect to working the wood. Then and only then do we have that grounded material that gives a home to theoretical insights, a piece at a time, one step at a time. The journey of 10,000 miles starts with a single step. That's a Confucian classic thing. So that's sort of the ecosystem setting in which we're doing this. Now I'm trying to make some time here because you guys didn't give me that many questions. You've been asking me so many good ones along the way that are becoming parts of the nightly strategy podcasts. That what I'm going to do is try to summarize a lot of those goodies. So I want to just start off with that as a wandering around the yard, around the dojo, as we go take a walk through the grounds of the learning grove, the learning academy, if you will. Smell the fresh air. So this is on the screen, the executive summary from Rich Romatowski on that course the trading boot camp, and he's just done such a beautiful job here at lending dignity. Right? The practical challenge to become successful traders: we develop a doctrine and a body of knowledge on which we rely. We believe that if we stick to our rules in the heat of battle, everything will be okay, but the world is changing around us, and not all of the rules will continue to work tomorrow. We never know whether we're facing the same old problem and market for which we already have a solution, or if this is the new. Boy, I'm just reading this, what he wrote. It's so beautiful. Or is this a new type of problem market we don't yet fully understand? We probably shouldn't even believe we fully understand it. If we implement the ideas of high reliability organizations, we could appreciate it, but not understand it fully. It's probably a good posture to take, to give you 1 foot in the land of rules and 1 foot in the land of adaptive hybrid sense and respond. We need to continually manage our PBOC to ensure that it's keeping up with the way the world really works. I don't know if you could say it any better than that. Wow. Wow. So design thinking is an acknowledgement that the world changes. And so SOPs and the best choice from a short list may lose effectiveness over time. Maybe it's only a little bit at a time, like eroding, so you don't even notice it, or like the frog in the slowly being cooked. We need to constantly look for opportunities to design new approaches to a changing problem set, even before the problem set has changed. And then don't discard the ones that we have, because there will be some conditions for which that is ideal. So don't discard this stuff. Put it back on the wood pile. As we trade, it's a conservation of ideas and systems, right? As we trade, we need to stay as efficient as we can, but to be mindful of our results, so that we know whether a new approach may be called for by studying that darn histogram. So design thinking is that connecting gearbox between strategic planning, operational excellence, and tactical execution. Design thinking is what accounts for all of that space outside the boundary of the SOP. So when I had a really good SOP for how our 1,500 man support area would occupy a new position so that it was safe, secure, and we could get the support operations working efficiently, we had a really good SOP for that. And then I trained the boys on the SOP, and then they didn't need me to do that. I could go sit on a hilltop and watch us occupy, taking the position of the enemy, watching us to see what we look like through the enemy's eyes, to determine where the blind spots are from the way we were internally executing our internal SOP. And that gives you the combination of divergent and convergent thinking. That gives you the execution efficiency of rules and SOPs, but also the adaptive thinking through the dynamic environment. So I think he's really captured that nicely. The ecosystem has operations, education, learning, and collaboration. So individual operations is putting it together yourself and doing it. Education, and then I'll go to the other side. Collaboration is when you are deliberately, systematically, and honorably working with others for mutual benefit. You're not just working on things individually in the same space like in a library, but you're part of a learning team. That's education. And then training and operations and execution. So that education and learning is really in the middle of that, and it has a foot in both camps. It's both individual and group. System, self, and market to earn R reliably. Continuous loop of planning, prep, execute, assess, in order to grow in mastery of the art of trading. My destination is mastery. My journey is towards improved mastering. So where are you on that curve? And that's dynamic. The ground shifts under your feet. Systems development, nicely said. System versus strategy. 7 original entry conditions and 11 new systems are described and illustrated using market data in the boot camp alone. Market assessment and systems application. You see that every night in the strategy podcast. Trade framing is our practice and our approach, just taking our tools to work and applying it in forms and structures, scaffolding and themes. Trading time frames, positions, core position, swing, day trading. Boy, has he done a nice job on that. So that's page 1 of 41. The ecosystem. Key terms and discussions. Coaching. I mean, yeah, man, is this good. Yeah. Ken gets a lot of trading ideas simply by wondering why. Well, you'll see that today when we look at Kata 2. Ken evaluates the prototypes by looking for a histogram of results that he can manage, by which I mean no losses. This is a manageable. I talked this week about the importance of hiring your own manager, or turning yourself into the manager that you would hire. And by that he means no losses greater than 1R. Between 1 and -1 and +2 is a bell curve, meaning that the results are repeatable, reliable, and robust, with a positive expectancy in there, and a fat tail beyond 2R, which allows for further tweaking. God dang, is that nicely said. Ken doesn't backtest. That's what I say, but if I'm being honest, I think I do when I'm studying each and every trade frame and execution that I took that day. I think that's backtesting. Now that I come to a better understanding of what it actually means to me, I think looking at game film, bar by bar, trade by trade, and looking for eliminating waste and risk and looking for new things, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm actually now a big believer in backtesting done in a certain way. So that's my moment of Zen today. And I only get there by admiring the way Rich has, deconstructed my brain here. So large numbers of case studies and statistical assessment in search of, data mining and curve fitting, that definition of backtesting I don't do. I don't think it's worthless, but I don't place any decisive amount of belief in it. I place belief in it and faith when it's done correctly. There's so many ways it can be done wrong that unless you're following Howard Bandy's approach to the design and testing of trading systems systematically, Howard Bandy, Bandy, Blue Owl Press, what a beautiful mind that guy has. Unless you're doing it the way he specifies, you're introducing more errors that'll lead you astray, in spite of the insights that you might get. He's almost like a guy who can process the meat that a hunter brings home and package it for you safely and without bacteria so it doesn't harm you in the future. Because you can come to a lot of reasonable conclusions based on your evidence, but if you miss some of that bacteria, some of those bad ideas, there will come a day when that bites you in the rear end if you aren't looking ruthlessly for that kind of embedded systematic risk. So Howard Bandy's book on the design and testing of trading systems from an engineering point of view is just beautiful work. His book on mean reversion systems is just beautiful. And one of my most treasured memories is sending him an email that described how we're approaching the RLCO Bollinger Band framework to frame trades and using the Bollinger Band mean the way we use it. He listened to that and he said, "Wow, I never thought of that. I thought that was the one of the top three gifts and awards I've ever received in my life in terms of like validation." And was when he said, "Wow, um, that was worth 1,000, 10,000 hours of back testing. That was worth $1 million to my self-confidence." To hear him say, "Wow." One of the other three best things I ever got was reading the book from Ed Thorpe, legendary Thorp. Can't remember his book, but he was talking about, lessons he'd learned through his 40-year career managing money and being a mathematician and an engineer. There's a theme in there. And he said that if he were to get back into the money management business, his still single most robust idea would be to find things in about the 5-day time frame that had gone to abnormal conditions and then play for a structured reversion to the mean, which was a validation, in my view, of the max pain range compression, and from extreme conditions come extreme results, and playing the trade frame in an adaptive way. Now, I wouldn't dream of sending him a note. He's an amazing guy. But to read that 220 some pages into his book in just a toss off paragraph, and when I can still feel how those words closed the loop for me on what I was doing, kind of out here in the wilderness and having set out on my own. And it reminded me of Musashi's story where he was trying to express himself with excellence in sword martial art craft and artistic pursuits, but deliberately choosing to follow his own way and finding his instructors in nature themselves by being on the road and learning from everybody that he met and living according to his internally constructed code. When I read those words and read Takuan, his Zen master's letters to him about the path that he had chosen, and when I felt that resonance, that was the third big moment for me. And that's about all I need. When I feel, an attack on my confidence, at the first hint of pressure on my confidence, those three golden nuggets let me say, "Oh yeah, that's right. What, did you expect to go through life without ever being challenged? Really?" Confidence is a fragile thing. It's the feeling you have after you've gone through enough life and found some successes and are tentatively making rules that you can trust in as guiding principles. And if you don't think that's a tentative conclusion, then maybe you haven't thought enough about it. So let me try to undermine your confidence. Well, what is it that your confidence is based on? To what limit? What are the sources of power and authority and justification that allow you to hold certain things to be self-evident? Those are the three things that I hold on to. The fourth thing is the continuous feedback that I get from folks like you that are studying and asking and questioning and thriving and trying and doing well as a collaborative effort in mutual risk management and tribal affiliation and tribal support that the people may thrive. That's the enterprise that we're working on. So I don't ever want to tell you, hey, don't worry about it. Dude, I'm telling you, worry about it. Worry about every single thing I say. I laugh all the time about saying every page that I write that I deliberately include at least one grammatical error or factual error, and your job is to find it. I don't deliberately do that. It's just sort of a natural consequence of shipping things at version 0.8, but it's one of the ways that the world works, that perfection is a thing, but the pursuit of perfection is the real thing, and the continuous improvement. So, wow, look at this beautiful work that he's done. Ken aims for 2R position sizing, but is happy to get 0.6R consistently and frequently. And that allows me to execute without a much emotional response. And the emotional response I get is reinforcing feedback because these fractional R's. So I want you to take a look at that. Remember, if we got the hidden beauty of that 0.2 execution risk is that if you can get 0.6 position sizing risk, you're really getting 3-to-1 to the execution risk. So just keep that nugget in the back of your mind. By the end of the trading day, all those fractional R's add up. So we're going to think about what Stephen Fieldhouse said. I posted his commentary on Patreon yesterday. Stephen's a guy who started taking the hybrid trading course, but immediately jumped into doing the kata every day as part of his scholarship, just to see what's happening. And he, in his first full week of live trading forward, just applying the kata, hasn't even completed all of the hybrid workshop yet, netted 7R. So yeah, fractional R's will add up. Much like the wisest man in Babylon, or the richest man in Babylon, who put a grain of rice or a gold piece on one square, then on the chessboard, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. That compounded power of accumulated fractional R. Anything that I think, I don't know what the market's going to do. Anything I think I know is just a guess. Just a guess. If you take that word, look how different it sounds. Anything I think I know is a guess. It's not so pejorative or doesn't diminish. I was going to say diminuate. Yeah. So I'm going to hang this collection of notes from Rich in the file section here. Wow, and each one of those is geared towards the name of the lesson in the boot camp video. So if you were to, what he's done is made a beautiful syllabus for you. So Sylvia asked me, how do I work emotionally in events outside of trading that upset or undermine your confidence? You know, Sylvia, it's kind of the same way. What I've learned as a behavior, as a procedure, is I evaluate the situation the same way that I evaluate these I just say, you know, that thing happened. Let me just put on that scholarly mind and the coaching lens, and I get into that mentality, and I create some standoff from the thing that's troubling me. I do the owl meditation, and then I just stand off and analyze it frame by frame. And if you think about the owl meditation, which had a very powerful effect this week on somebody's life in real time, who had just lost a parent. God, my heart just goes out to him. Well, the next thing to do is what you do after you've done the owl meditation. It says stay there in that mind state until you know what the next thing to do is, then go do that thing. Until you know what the next thing to do is, the thing to do is what you're doing, which is sitting in that mind state, having just cleared the emotional reverberations of the moment. And then the systematic approach that I would connect that to the flashcard and the narration that I did, and I just uploaded that on YouTube this morning. I took that extract from one of the nightly podcasts. It says how I evaluate an opportunity. So Dave Rushing, I think, asked me what I thought about real estate investment trusts. And so I went through how I think about an investment opportunity using that multi-time frame, multi-lens analysis, but using systems thinking and a SWOT analysis and examining the emotional charge. Well, that's how I think about things to judge what to do next. That's design thinking in action. That connects that strategy, operations, and tactics. So if the trade result was something that undermines my confidence about trading, I go through that. I almost disassociate myself from, I unentangle from that hairball, step back, and then I manage it by careful dissection and, do an autopsy of it. And as long as you're alive, you can do that. And if you're dead, it doesn't matter anyway. So what's the worry? You got nothing to worry about. If you got a problem, you only got two things to worry about. Are you alive or are you dead? If you're dead, you got nothing to worry about. So if you're alive, you only got two things to worry about. You have enough time to sort it out or you don't. If you don't have enough time to sort it out, you got nothing to worry about. If you have enough time to sort it out, you got two things to worry about. You have a system for analysis and processing or you don't. If you don't have a system, you got nothing to worry about. If you do have a system, you only get two things to. You see where this is heading? This sort of infinite regression of analysis allows you to kind of take effective action in the world in a process that you can have confidence in. And so that systematic review of REITs I put on that flashcard, and it can be applied to any investment opportunity. Hey, it can be applied to any opportunity or any situation. That same approach provides that analytical way of thinking to make sure that you've looked at all of the things in the level of detail that you have time to do. But on the emotional side, that systematic approach to the owl meditation allows you to fully feel and acknowledge all of the feelings, and then to release that the negative feelings and interpretations to the universe to deal with, and leaves you in a state of peaceful, detached calm, in which you can actually do that kind of analytical thinking. And then the third piece is, where does the energy to take action come from? Part of that is the energy that comes from the feeling of confidence that is connected to actual evidence in your life that you should be confident in your ability to act in the world. False humility about your skill is insidious and as counterproductive and a waste, in the same way that the Dunning-Kruger effect of excess confidence in your lack of skill, misplaced confidence, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a real thing. So as you develop expertise, the other side of that coin is, at what point did I drift into the Dunning-Kruger effect? If I'm on that path to mastery at some percentage of the way, when I go beyond the limits of where I ought to be confident, then I'm falling prey to the Dunning-Kruger effect at some point. And experts are no less susceptible to that than anybody else, and maybe more susceptible, because the temptation of overconfidence is more prevalent for them precisely because they have so many things to be confident in within their range of narrow expertise that you can understand how that could spill over. That's why double-blind peer review and collaborative learning is the only trustworthy and reliable method of establishing the difference between signal and noise. The entire enterprise of Western civilization and scientific thinking, the Enlightenment, rests entirely on that principle of the scientific method. So when you ask me, how do I work emotionally through events that are upset or undermine my confidence, it's connected in that way to those three things: emotional knowledge, cognitive knowledge, and then action knowledge. And that comes back to our buddy, the walking man, taking action in the world in a direction. When you leave the roundabout recharged, refreshed, reset, repurposed, going out to reconnoiter and go to make gains for the tribe and then bring it back to the campfire and the roundabout. Those 5 ways of knowing: the head, heart, gut, hands, and feet, and then being able to act with confidence. Well, that's never going to be perfect. Part of that belief in yourself and unconscious competence is having already rehearsed that, already have acknowledged that I've already felt the worst thing that can happen. And in trading, it's that fully experiencing the -1R. And then accommodate and say, yeah, I can live with that. I've already experienced that even before it happened. So there's nothing to fear in there. And that is a very freeing moment, that you can let all of those other things go and just take action on the next step. Just take the next step. Well, that's something that trading will teach you, but that's something that any effortful endeavor will teach you, whether it's scholarship or soccer or weightlifting or diet and nutrition or being a parent or developing professional expertise. Anything that is action oriented to achieve results in the world through repetition and development has an emotional component to it. And so all I know is that the freeing feeling that comes from the owl meditation, and I just had that flashcard of the owl come in, and that deep breath you just heard, I physically experienced the freeing result of doing the owl meditation in that breath. If you were measuring my heartbeat right now, you would notice that it went down 3 to 5 beats per minute in a deeper sense of relaxation and connectivity to first principles. So I'm going to say thanks to Sylvia for asking me that question to allow me to verbalize that. I actually physically just felt that. So that triumvirate of, if you think of those 3 overlapping circles of system, self, and market, and then put emotion, heart, brain, and then hands and feet are kind of that action orientation. And right in the center of that is the gut. The gut is the one where that is the seat of confidence or not. If your gut is worried, you're not confident. So acknowledge it. That's a really important information. That shouldn't be the source of stress and worry. That is a gift from your chimp to you. It says, you know what, at this deep level, no matter how much the head believes in that thing that you just came to a conclusion, and your heart wants to believe emotionally, and your hands and feet think that you have enough skills, if you haven't convinced your gut, and you can't convince your gut, by the way, the gut has learned not to listen to the head, heart, hands, and feet. The gut is listening to the sounds of the external apex predators that are out there. It has learned to listen for that and come to its own conclusion, unencumbered by the knowledge of the head, heart, hands, and feet. The gut is its own brain and listens to what it listens to and has learned how to turn off all of those other four knowledge centers. So it is genuinely primitive, primordial, externally centered, and externally outreached to listen, look, feel, smell, sense danger. So when you feel lack of confidence, that's a really important message. So what do you do with that information? You say, thank you, chimpanzee. I've got my fireman, who's my hero. I've got my manager, and I've got my sniper. But I also got my chimp. That's something that when you heard, if you listen to the 3v3 speech last night, which I thought was really good, it's like we have an extra player on our team, that chimpanzee. He's kind of invisible, but he's on our side. The other team's chimp is working against them, or they're throwing the chimpanzee at us to take us out of our confidence zone. Because when we're confident, that combination of a good trade frame with the fireman, a manager, and a sniper, dude, you can bank on that, he said with confidence, based on evidence. So that chimpanzee is our gut's response to all the attacks from those other teams. So what we're going to do is not try to eliminate the chimp, but we're going to embrace him and say, thank you for the gift, because that's going to provide us the energy to take all the actions that lead us in a continuous improvement pathway. I don't know if you know how powerful that is, but you will. Boy, is that powerful. I think, I feel, I sense that that's really powerful. So do some due diligence and fact check me and sort that out. If that was an aha moment for you, write it down and send me something. Look how good this note sheet is. God bless America. And we're on page 17 of 41, so I'm just going to stop there. And I want you to notice that what we have now is we have Antonio's beautiful summary of the boot camp notes. And now we have Rich Romatowski's, and we also have Rahul Kangude's, and he's done the same thing with his interpretation. So we've got three different detailed summaries of the lesson by lesson insights that come from three skilled traders from three different points of view. One from, I'll get it wrong, I know he's in Asia somewhere, Rahul, I think he's in India. And Antonio's a lawyer in Mexico, and Rick's somewhere either in the States or the UK, some Western European centric Caucasian framed Western thinker, but who's done a beautiful artistic job. So in addition to those things, which I'll upload in the file section, I just uploaded this morning, a bunch of flashcards and the idea of courage in the 3v3 competition. So if you click on that one, that will give you the this picture. So yeah, Sylvia, those how do I work through the emotional events, the owl meditation? In every way. It's not just trading, it's everything. You know? There's our three-man team, fireman, manager, and sniper, supported by the trader and the caretaker medic and the chimpanzee. That's our support staff. That's that deep cleansing breath. Peak relaxation and readiness. Battle circle. As soon as I see Battle Circle, ready to play, coach. Ready to get decisions made. And the other teams in that 3v3 Tournament of Champions. Fear, Greed, and Confusion, the reigning champ. Fear, Uncertainty, and Doubt, second place. Up, Down, Sideways, This, That, and the Other Thing, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. It's all right. I'm ready to play. Let's go. It's not mysterious. Let's make our decisions. It's just a process. Map it, improve it, move on, move forward. Let's go. Man, I'm ready to trade. I can't wait for Monday. So all those flashcards that are uploaded in the files section for you in the files section. There they are for download, along with all the things we've been building as we go. I will this weekend add 009 kata number 2, that 30-minute, I forget what I call it, frame trade or 30-minute flip box. But that'll go in there once I finish cleaning that up. It's almost ready to ship. So let's go find questions for the weekend session. You know, this is what happens if you guys don't send me questions. You're giving me the microphone and just throwing me out there on stage for improv. You know. The first one here, Wen Chong asked me, can I please upload the recorded videos for the Q&A sessions from the last 2 weeks? Yeah, I was reprocessing July 27th, so I will get that uploaded. The July 4th I posted. I'll get this one posted here. That one is just about ready. It's still in the middle of uploading, but that's where I will hang it. And the July 4th link is there. So for today, so that's that one. And the answer is yes. Catherine asked me, can I describe the behavior of the market when it is hesitating compared to reversing, and what are the key signs to look for? And she named them. Baby dragon being crossed, MACD crossing, areas to expect hesitation, and so forth. All of the elements of the trade frame. If you take a look at my market daily health check, every one of those is an area in which hesitation would be least surprising. And hey, Sylvia, thank you so much. She says, hey, I have such depth and wisdom. Nah, that's just 63 63 years of stumbling around and talking about it and answering questions as best I can and trusting in you guys to clarify what I'm trying to say. And in that way, I'll discover the intention and the purpose of what I'm really trying to do and trying to let it out. So thank you so much for that. Well, Catherine, you've really answered your own question. I hope she's in here so I can give her some praise. So, Catherine, here's what I want you to do. I want you, when you ask me a question like that, I want you to anticipate what you think I'm going to say and how you would answer that question to your kids when they ask you that. and get a working answer, and then compare your version 0.8 to mine. Or let your answer be the version 0.3, and then my answer will be version 0.3. You add 0.3 and 0.3 together, and what do you get? 0.8? Yeah, because there's an extra 0.2 from collaboration. Oh, that's my second moment of Zen. Hot diggity. You know, it's not even fair. I know that I'm learning more from these sessions than you guys are. But that's just me being selfish. Hey, that's me using the Rocket Book right there. You can see I'm doing those sketches in a Rocket Book, and then when I take that picture using the Rocket Book app, it beams it to like 5 different locations as a PDF, and then it's set so that it adds that PDF page to a growing document of PDFs. So I can use those documents, and I can pick which of those 5 different locations I want to beam it to, because I use some of these things for not just trading, but this is pretty good for soccer mentality. I use this diagram for my soccer team and my military officers. It's the same speech. It works the same way. That's how I know there may be something good in there. And that little procedure about how to develop the managerial expertise by treating that as writing the job description for the manager I want to hire, then just make yourself into that person. That step-by-step procedure. That gets back to Sylvia's question about how do I emotionally process. That's also how I cognitively process. And there's an emotional content to all those, because when you look at those 12 questions and go through that little speech, which I encourage you to do, which I won't repeat now, but that's how I do that. That's also how I do that pairwise comparison of values clarification. All that was what are the values, qualities, and skills that I want the manager to have, and then how do I think all the way through that in a structured way, and then prioritize those. Then you'll know something about your manager who's really, really important. I hope I don't forget what I was going to say. Dang it. So Rich just talked about systems, self, and market, whatever that sequence is there. And that our job is to maximize the sweet spot. And that there's actual, I'm going to tell you, there's actual danger in those places. And that these pieces of knowledge are pretty good. So in that understanding of system by itself and self and market, that's good. But there's actually a hidden danger when it comes to integrated thinking, that when you find yourself in that intersection, like between system and self, and now you've successfully integrated 2 of those things, but in that space that I just drew, I've neglected the market, you're actually in greater danger from the market, because you now have integrated these 2 pieces. And now you think, aha, I really know something, because I've blended these 2 different, distinct, difficult bodies of knowledge. So I've got mastery plus mastery. So I think I've got, hey, I've really got something here. I'm just going to make it work in the market no matter what. But if I've neglected the market, see, I'm outside of that circle of confidence in the market by being up in here. That's dangerous. So if you've got mastery on two of those things on that axis of excellence, but you've neglected the market, it's going to bite you. And when your system and self integrate, and what happens when you have a lot of confidence in yourself and a lot of confidence in your system, and you decide to neglect the information that the market is trying to tell you, hey, dude, you forgot about me, but you just ignore that warning of, that's the market saying you shouldn't be so confident in that. I'm just giving you some hints and allegations, and you disregard that message about maybe you shouldn't be so confident. That's where the danger comes from until you explain. And then if you're trading at a size that's not justified, that's where the blow up comes from, because then you just try harder and do more of what you're doing. That's why that note about design thinking is so important. It's not until that market pulls you back here into the sweet spot and you've accounted for that, your little triangle of excellence here, centered on your centroid, that's where you want to be, because you're getting information now, not just exchange between these two elements, but towards that centroid function. So now I got this thing. I got this kind of action going on in that unit circle. Man, is this good? I just got to tell you, man, I think this is good. That's not bad. That was pretty good to scale. Of course, I drew it upside down. System, self, and market. You know, these little circles out here. Man, thank you so much, Sylvia. God dang, this is good. Imagine that was drawn to scale. I can't wait for Van Miller to turn this into a beautifully rendered architect's interpretation of this. Boy, is that going to be nice. Hey, wait till I brief that in the true storytelling workshop, Van. So the risk happens over in here when I have sub-optimized, right? Let me draw that as a black line. When I'm living in those areas, I haven't integrated enough from the one that's missing. But if I get some kind of, hey, what if I can sharpen that focus to this inner ring and really tightened up my shot group, we would call that. This is that lesson that's in the workshop about the visual management model for professional development. That actually won an award. And I just realized how to teach it better. So if we said this outer ring was something like the 80% proficiency and then 90 and 95, and this theoretical optimum of 100% total mastery, and we're And there should be an arrow in there. If that's my journey towards being fully integrated here. Come on, Kenneth. Next time I will remember to draw those regions first. So I'm on this little bullseye towards full integration. Maybe I'm, I've got some individual excellence. And maybe those are also, there's probably a little bullseye function in there too, that if I was at perfect self-knowledge, but indistinct from systems and markets, I might be a green in that circle, but my overall utility is probably only ever yellow because I'm not integrated. And then these are some of those other regions of danger. I don't know why those little white dots are in here. So maybe those are just places that I might be. So what we're trying to do is get to that fully integrated piece, and then we might be marking off, our path of understanding the market, and then if I can bring that, oh, that's why it was I was treating that as a eraser. Sorry. Why is it showing that? Dang it. Well, anyway, uh, we're aiming for that. We could mark off each pathway from those three bodies of knowledge: system, self, and market, going towards the center of that centroid is that perfect middle spot. That's and that pathway is probably, if we were to make that the yellow brick road. There we go. So we might be, maybe this is the journey from self, and we're following that little yellow brick road. And then when you finally get there, this we were talking about this with Van, and during this blue arc that connects the start point and the end point is what completes that circuit and turns that into the narrative that gives you this really powerful connection. And now it integrates as a total story. So Well, why don't you just go from point A to point B? Because the world happens. And the roads that we take look like this. And whatever it may be, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and what's going on. And then in retrospect, you say, oh, I know. Here's how I connect this to wherever I started from with self. And we think, oh, all I got to do is just take the blue journey. Yeah, you don't get there unless you've also done the yellow brick road. And then when you arc that together and extract the meaning, then you transcend to that next higher level of, aha, now I got it. Now you know the next set of questions to ask. It's not just the sense making. Like it's not just the blue connection. Oh, that's all it is. We think it is, but it really isn't. It's also all the other dots that you connected. And it's not just those, because if you don't do the reflection on it, you're missing the process of growth. And then if we think of that as a spiral in 3 dimensions and going, that's the transcendent journey up. But we're these little mules and donkeys and a person. We got our little donkey mule helping us, our little walking man, as he goes around the spiral of learning, trying to just get up to the mountaintop to see far with wisdom. Yeah, but if all you're doing is looking at a distance, but you've forgotten what it was like here, and you've forgotten all the little steps along the way, then you miss the point. It's not the mountaintop. It's the mountain and the valley and the distance and your current location. It's all of that. And more than you can even say. That was supposed to be a yin yang symbol. Thought it was going to be slick. So imagine that was some kind of professional yin yang symbol. Well, that's that little moment of Zen. So the other thing I wanted to say was that idea between the 0.2 aiming towards the full 2.0 position sizing risk, and that little XR is only 0.2 of that. And then the intermediate position is I'm happy to take 0.6 because that's 2 of them. That's really the 3-to-1 against that initial execution risk. In much the same way that I believe in version 0.8 is good enough to ship, and then the early adopters at version 1.0 make adjustments to it, and then the final product is version 2.0. Well, that's how you get there. These little intermediate journeys matter. And so when we frame it and just declare that initial risk is 0.2, that's why when we do that little stacked ladder of initial risk, first box, second box, third box, that right around in here, the initial risk +1, +2, and 3 boxes, and each one of those is 0.2. Right up there around that version or 0.6 is where that's leg 1, and if that becomes leg 2 because more buyers came in from the higher time frames and that thing rockets off, that's how you end up getting a 30-yard day on on Thursday. And Sylvia says, what I find challenging is shifting from the intellectual systems and the market to the self-awareness and feelings piece, but this is what the practice is about. Yeah. So in the same way that I started off this little self systems and market, hey, we're going to call that emotions, cognitive thinking, and action. And this is your gut and heart are on the emotional side. This is your head, and this is your hands and feet. Oh, here's what I wanted to, before I lose sight of this diagram. Did I lose it already? What I was going to say was that yeah, point three, your point three, my point three, our initial feeling. So when you ask me a question, hey Ken, what do you think about? I want you to come up with your version 0.3, your initial response, anticipating what you think I'm going to say. My initial response is going to be 0.3. Collectively, that's going to become 0.8. Where's the extra 0.2? It comes from the risk that we took way back over here. You ventured enough to ask me a question, and I ventured enough to propose to answer it, and we each did our 0.3, but that courage is a plus point. So that dialogue and exchange between the question and the answer makes it 0.8, and that's good enough to ship. And then our collaboration here, the questions that you guys come up with and the insights that you get from listening to Sylvia and I talk about this, or Catherine and I talk about this, is what raises what I'm presenting from point 8 to 1.0. And then as we continue to refine that, this thing's going to become locked in and rock solid. So think about how the kata has now gotten to version 0.2 simply by adding the Ken, Hum, Wu, Wei exit. That thing is rock solid. Ask Stephen, ask Catherine. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Boy, is that going to trigger a lot of things for me when I clean that up. Moment of Zen number 1, 2020-0711 underscore 01. Yeah, Sylvia, wow is the right word. That was as good for me as listening to Howard Bandy say wow. I'm already doing that better. Look how much better that already looks from practice. The first version, 0.8, is already version 1.0. So watch how fractal this is. You got to figure out how to do the transparency on this. Oh boy. So we might started thinking this as systems or self systems and market. But this is also emotions, thinking, and action. And when we link that up with our walking man, heading that way. So if we have head, heart, gut, hands, and feet, those 5 ways, the action is really hands and feet. How to do things and how to do them on the way. Your head is your head. You're thinking. The emotions come from your heart and your hopes and dreams, and from your gut, your fears and worries. So when we map the walking man to that set, now we have that. And guess what else we have? We have the fireman, the manager, the sniper. And in all those cases, we're trying to optimize the space here in the middle. So there's a real power in this unity. And then what I said before about the danger of only getting 2 out of those 3 and thinking that you have something. And now if you think about that centroid function, and you're trying to get to that mythical spot in the middle, and each of those pathways from self towards the center, market to the center, systems to the center, you are as good as the worst one of those. So maybe let me draw this in green. So let's say on self, I'm here, and system, maybe I'm there. But then on market, my understanding of the market is out here. My little triangle looks like this. And the centroid of that one is out here. And the distance from the centroid, or my location of where I am to the centroid, is affected by the one that is the least developed. That pulls me away from my lack of knowledge is what pulls me. So that's what we got. You have to work in a spiral way, I propose. So from wherever you are, and just start anywhere. Hey, you said you understand, you had a good technical feeling of, I should do it this way, technical feeling of self and market, but you were, worried about this piece. So maybe the thing to do is, to get to that centroid, you got to wander around a little bit and spiral in. That's the same as walking that golden path around the mountain, spiral learning to the top, so that, hey, I think if I can just climb the mountain, then I can see far. If I get to the top of the mountain, I can see far, and then forget about all the things that all along the way. No, you got to have that blue arc of wisdom that says, oh yeah, from here to there. Now I've completed the circuit. Now I have actual energy that connects all of that stuff and then back. And now I get a real nice roundabout effect that lets me go. That's where the energy comes, where it comes from to propel this guy. And remember that gut doesn't listen to your feet and your hands and your heart and your head. That gut is out here looking and listening and staying alert to all the threats that are coming. And that risk center has learned, hey, head, heart, hands, and feet, you guys are studying all of the things that we've been doing and that we've been bringing to the table. And so you want to have, with your stupid head, you want to have all this confidence. Who's out there worrying about all the things that we don't know about? The goddamn chimp. That's what he's doing for us. And you want to get rid of that? You want to disrespect that? No, I want to manage that. And the guy who's protecting me against that raging fire is the fireman. So not only does he get me to no lose plus dinner for two and hands it off to the manager plus sniper, he also is caring for the chimp. So I want you to think about the fireman as this guy, Mr. Fireman, but also taking care of his little buddy, the chimp. That little chimp is our insurance policy. That little chimp is our insurance policy against a world in which fires can rage out of control and come this way. Ask the guys in Australia and California what they think about raging wildfires. That chimpanzee is your gut. He is your most important ally against the errors of overconfidence. You want to be confident? Yeah, go ahead, be real confident. Have those little golden nuggets. Hey, Howard Bandy liked my idea. Wow. Ed Thorpe wrote a book, and I discovered the same thing he's doing. Wow. All of the little reinforcing stuff that we do in our collaborations. Wow. All of that really are sources of power that give me confidence. And the chimp just says, oh yeah, really? Really? Are you that sure? In a dynamic world, do you want to really be that sure all the time? That's what Taleb says about the fourth quadrant. He says, yeah, when you're in the other three quadrants, okay, be confident, but don't forget, something's coming. And that's the basis of my risk management, guys. That's gold right there. That might even be some platinum. So I just want to lock in that idea. Once I see that blob, I'll never forget that. Too funny. So I think this little piece was really important. The point three, you venture a point three with your good question. I do my best to answer it. And because of the courage that it takes to venture, we get an extra little, free gift. of 0.2, and we integrate that and record that in here, and that becomes version 0.8. Your question, my answer, plus the guts to do it in public, gets us to 0.8. Now, all of the commentary or those little moments of zen from the people that are listening, that extra 0.2, when you make observations and improvements and talking about all that, that gets us to version 1.0. Then when we study that one and integrate all of those little, because each one of you is just doing 0.2, guess what? Each of those little improvements that you guys get, all of that is how you get to version 2.0, which is the fire and forget. That's the improved kata right now. And you know what makes all of that possible? If each of these little 0.3s and 0.2s are bricks, courage. God dang it, did it again. Why is that? I think when I accidentally hit the button on this thing, and it's get right click. The courage to shit. God bless. Opacity marker. Brush. There should be. It's in erase mode. Sure. Anyway, the courage to share. If I could have gotten the stupid thing to work. It's not stupid, I'm stupid. The courage to share. So, to come back, what Catherine has already done is all of these things, when the baby dragon is being crossed, MACD crossing, areas to expect hesitation, those are the key signs. That's when price goes through those layers, that's the behavior that the market is exhibiting to give you signals that we are in a transition state from one direction to the other. That was the essence of the of this picture. The courage flashcard. So this was the highlight from this week. And the main idea here was that the big moves pay for everything, and you only get them by taking the shot. And in the moment, it always feels like it's never right, but so you just follow the rules. In these big transitional states down here where that river turned, the slope of the river, the slope of the dragon, that RL30, the health of the trend, in these yellow zones where it's like hesitation, don't worry, just you don't even need confidence. You just take your shot, control your losses, keep shooting. The only thing what's going to happen is the rules are going to protect us from losing too much, and then every so often man, you get that 30R move by just taking your shot and managing the trade and being able to take the shot and hang on to your seat. Don't lose your grip. And develop the emotional resilience and the thick skin that allows you to trade when it's trending and when it's chopping. So all the things that Catherine listed in there, that's what all these elements of the mathematical construction of these different indicators and how we use them is to reduce your cognitive, so you're not trying to think about it and reinvent the thing in the moment of the trade. You're just following the rules, looking at the results. And if the results that come out of the blue box versus the black box over time are good and good enough, then the rules are approximately right. So watch the shape of the equity curve. So we're using the histogram. We manage from the histogram and not from the individual trades to change the world. The individual trades make suggestions, and that study, to go back to complete the loop, that's what I'm doing with back testing. So maybe that's what I mean by back testing. So that's another moment of Zen for me. 3 big moments of Zen already. Not bad for a morning's work. And we're 2 hours into this thing. Crazy. Good thing you guys only asked me 2 questions. We'd never get out of here. Catherine says, how long is too long to stay wrong? For example, when you take an entry and it makes a fuss up and down, but more sideways, do you have a recommended time to jump out 10 bars and all that stuff? Have I noticed that if the price tries 3 times and can't break through, it just seems to give up? Is that a good time to scratch? Yes. That's 3 tests or 3 strikes and you're out. My best answer to the first part of that is to just follow the management procedure using the Wu Wei exit. It's mathematically precise, so you don't even have to, you're not spending any, it answers the question of how to do that in a reasonable way. So the Wu Wei is the combination of the manager and the sniper, and just trust that between them, the average of those 2 guys is going to be good. And each, the manager is mathematically precise, and the sniper is whatever you feel, and that's how you employ the chimp. You're training the chimp to be your sniper, right? And you use the sniper when the fireman says, I feel like, we could let him stretch his legs a little bit. So, yeah, the fireman could say, yeah, you can borrow the chimp, let him teach him to be a sniper. I've had him back in the firehouse, was teaching him how to be a controlled killer sniper. So that it's like in Pokemon, the next evolution, the higher evolution of the chimp is the super chimp is our sniper. All right. So those are the questions. The last thing I wanted to hit was, I'm not going to hold you any longer here. This flashcard summarizes, I'm going to speed run these things. These were the major breakthroughs from this week that are embedded in each of the nightly podcasts. You need to go look at Danny's option course, the example he gave in SPCE, the Virgin Galactic. We did one where it shows the way I traded it intraday and the way he's been trading that over the last 20 days. Both of those crushed. And that may be the reason you need to convince yourself to get the bundle and get his options course. The Kata 1 Insights, I think we refined it and just knocked it out of the park this week with Wu Wei and effortless action. That was so good. And then the insights from yesterday. Go listen to that podcast about the 30-minute PSAR flip box and what it means to do relaxed hybrid trading. There was a posting in Patreon about 3 traders who are just doing the kata and learning this stuff as they go, but they're doing the kata, learning from it, and making bank. And then the importance of market assessment and sector posture and the way that has been crushing it this week. I sent out last night, early this morning, about 2 this morning, a COVID summary document in PDF form, about 101 pages of science on COVID, stress, anxiety, diet, nutrition, supplements, exercise, grounded in rock solid science. These are guys that have built a research quality consortium to sort through thousands of studies worldwide, and they do the integration and convert it into English. It cost me $300 to get a lifetime subscription to that, and they're going to give me a monthly summary of insights for health, nutrition, and wellness every month from 25 different distinct categories. They review 1,000 studies a month. So I took that doc, and I'm allowed to distribute those things. So I'm going to be publishing those periodically just because that just makes sense. That's what smart sounds like. The exit management and framing it as a 3v3 tournament of champions, I think is great. I thought the psychological exercise of the manager's job description and the procedure how to do it was great. The short story on instructional coaching for teachers and students is very good. The outreach and collaborative networks that I see you guys doing is just so darn powerful. I'm teaching my players at soccer in each practice to look at what we're doing through my eyes, and by telling them why I'm doing things and how I see it, it's making them better players, and there's a long-term payoff. Examining the refinement of the SSC entry and the trailing stop entry. That's not just good for the SSC kata, but that turned out to be the essential insight that I needed for the kata number 2, that 30-minute relaxed PSAR flip box. That's what I'm doing at production level. And then just the discussions we had during the week on, this is a time in our life when we're reinventing how we think about everybody and everything and all ourselves and everything we do all at once, and everybody around you is doing it. This is such a foundational moment. That story of the losing it all of the Navy medic, how he let $1 million, he risked everything, made $1 million, and then let it all go away. Just, that's the shame. And then I just think between now and November, we're just converging towards chaos. There's going to be more, not less. All of this stuff, resurgence rates, the economy, virus fatigue, free money, those are all the manifestations of this underlying engine of chaos, which is getting bigger, not less. And then you compare that power of that chaos to the power of the status quo. Why is the status quo so powerful? Because it works. And in that tension between this wave of chaos and the power of the status quo backed by 15 trillion in the Fed, that's what's happening. I would just say take care of your fitness. That owl meditation, I've restarted the soccer club stuff, so I'm back to getting my 10,000 steps a day and weightlifting every day. That wiggle stick that's the best $35 I ever spent, was get that fiberglass wiggle stick to keep the oxygenation of the blood going, that nitrous oxide dump. And then that thing from examine.com, I'm going to give you the benefit of that periodically. But at age 63 soon, I've got 25 years of wellness that I'm going to be managing, and that's my method. I'm doing it, so I'm going to share that journey with you as we go. And I'll probably do a separate course in the learning management system just to combine all of those things into one, all of the distribution into one tight set of lessons. So that's going to be available as a regular course to all the platinum members. That price is going up on 1 September, but if you're in the hybrid course now, you get to 31 December to take advantage of that $400 a month price, but it's going up on 1 September. Because I got to pay for all this stuff, man. Anyway, that's everything I got. I'll get this processed and hung and posted. And the other one is getting close to being done. So for Wing Chong, that should be posted here shortly in that link. All right, guys, that's everything I got. A good 2 hours at work. I'm going to go up and play with the kids. Take good care. Take good care of each other. Take good care of the world around you, and the world will take care of itself. That's the owl meditation briefly. Just don't worry about it. Get on with it. Do the next thing. Take care.